Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today as we continue our Resident Evil celebration, we are discussing our favorite costumes in the franchise. Of course, there are a buttload of costumes in this game spanning 30 years. You of course have the regular, starter costumes, many of which are actually some of my favorites, and then of course we have a ton of alternate costumes, also a lot of favorite costumes. So I'm gonna kick things off with one of my favorites, and I'm actually gonna start with some of the unlockables because it's probably the one that's gonna come up admittedly the most, especially because it's tied to Leon, so I'm gonna just get it out of the way. The pinstripe suit. It's without a doubt one of the best costumes in all of Resident Evil. It looks super cool. It doesn't hurt that it literally comes with additional, animations if you have the right weapon with it. So that's definitely, like an added little bonus factor, throwing the gun up in the air. Unless, you're in a random situation and you realize like, oh crap, I didn't mean to do that. I've had that happen maybe once or twice where I'm like, oops, I didn't mean to do that, and then, somebody rocked me. But other than that, phenomenal costume. Is definitely one of the best ones out there for sure, and I always enjoyed it. Of course, in the original game it was always super cool, and then in the remake it's just the same cool thing but better graphics. So definitely like that. I will stick with RE4, and I'm actually going to go with one of Ashley's costumes, and it's actually the remake armor suit. I think it looks really cool. Like something about it, I think it's because of the graphics where it can be so well detailed, where every time I see it I'm like, I actually think it looks really cool. Like in the original game, it was like, okay, you play around with it because it's the invincible suit, so you can just, fire willy-nilly. Like you don't even have to worry about shooting her, that type of thing. So it's fun to mess around with. But I never saw it as like, oh, this cool costume or anything. But in the remake, I'm like, it actually looks really nice because it's so insanely designed. Like they can put so much detail into it that it's like, it actually looks like a really good costume. And I know it's probably a crazy one for some people, but something about it always stood out. Crazy thing is, I still don't even have it in my game. Or maybe I do. No, I don't think I bought it. I don't think I've even bought it for her in my game. I haven't even played through with it yet. But every time I see it, I'm like, I actually really love that costume. It actually looks really cool. So it wasn't something that I ever would have thought would be considered one of my favorites, but I just like the detail of it because it looks, modern technology. It's one of those things that, like the pinstripe suit, it's just the same thing upgraded. It looks better, but it already looked good. In the original game, it was like, I can see that it's kind of like, smooth, so to speak. I know armor's smooth, but you know what I mean, like, GameCube/PS2 smooth. So it's like, it's cool, it's that armor suit. But in the new game, it's like, no, this is like a detailed piece of armor that looks really cool. So I actually like it. I think the design of it is pretty sweet. And one of her other costumes that I like from the remake, and this is something that's super specific, but it's like the emo costume. I didn't like it at first. I was like, this isn't really, like, this doesn't do it for me. And admittedly, you have to go with an accessory. That blue hair that they have for her is legit. If I counted that as its own costume, it would be on here as one of my favorite costumes. The blue hair makes that entire outfit, like something about it, I was like, it puts the whole like emo costume together for me. Just having like the blue hair on top changes the whole thing. I'm like, I love that costume as soon as I put the blue hair on it. Like, it's the emo costume, it actually fits. But the red hair doesn't. For me personally, at least it doesn't. But the blue hair does. I think the blue hair is sick. But that costume, like when I finally did it, I was like, oh, no, this costume works. This costume is actually pretty legit. I think it's pretty sweet. So I definitely love that costume now, but it does have to be with the blue hair. So it's got a little asterisk next to it, like, addendum, add blue hair. But with the blue hair, for me, I love that costume. Outside of it, I don't hate it 100%, especially once I got into enjoying the costume. I started to look at more of the details. I love the chainsaw on the back of the shirt, but I started to appreciate it more because the blue hair kind of made me like the costume in general. But I started to appreciate it a little bit more, but it, like I said, you gotta put the asterisks on it. It's gotta have the blue hair attached, for me personally. The other costume of hers that is 100% one of my favorites, I can't remember which like deluxe set it's a part of, but it's the one where her and Leon have like the white hair. I wish the white hair was something that we could add to the game as its own hairstyle, but the sort of Victorian era suit, I love that. That's also one of my favorites, legit, in the whole franchise. Like, I think that's one of the best costumes that's ever been put in the game. I love that costume on her. I don't like it nearly as much on Leon, so I'll always have him in something else, but I'll put her in that, and now, of course, like the emo costume if I put the blue hair on. But I always thought that costume looked super cool. Like, I like this sort of suited style, and like they're not bell bottom, but they're like high-waisted pants and stuff. Like, I just love the look of that. It reminds me a little bit of, it's pseudo-Victorian era versus the like RE2 costumes that were the noir costumes. it's kind of in that same era for me, or same style, because obviously it's, picking from a specific era of clothing. I definitely like that. So without a doubt, I'd say that's my favorite costume that she has in the remake. And in general, I'd say that's my favorite costume that they've done for Ashley between, OG 4 and Remake 4. I was never like losing my mind in the original game. Like I said, original armor costume, or even the, the pseudo Britney Spears inspired costume. Although, of course, like I've said a million times in this series, I wish they brought all the old costumes back. That's like one of the things that I wish they did for all the remakes, was just bring back not just the original costumes, like whatever was in the original version of the game, but also all the alternate costumes. I wish they brought those back. So, even though it wasn't, like I said, I wasn't losing my mind about it, but I still like the costume. Also, just to throw this out there, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. I do like the redesign of her character in 4. I like that costume more than I like her original OG4 costume. And I think they do a great job with it, like basically having the jacket and the scarf, and then once that comes off later in the game, it's basically her original costume. I think they just make it like a turtleneck, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a turtleneck instead of, I guess it was more of just a tank top in the original, like a sweater tank top sort of deal. Honestly, she was rocking the Wallace and Gromit. Now that I think about it, if you've seen Wallace and Gromit, you know what I'm talking about. She had like the green shirt part, but she didn't have the sleeves. I never thought of that till just now. She was definitely rocking a Wallace, which is totally cool. I love that. Cheese, great series. But enjoy some of the costumes, like I said, from RE4. And since we're going from the Victorian era to the noir stuff, might as well talk RE2. The noir costume, specifically for Claire, one of my favorite costumes. I think that's my favorite costume in the remake. I don't know if it's my favorite overall, because I love her alternate costume in the OG RE2, which I was super annoyed. I was like, man, that was, obviously that was, well, technically it was the second remake, but, that was the first one in modern times where I was like, please. And this was obviously way before it came out. I was like, they better put in that effing denim outfit with the flames on it. And sadly, they did not. I've seen the mods, and I love them. I'm happy people can do mods, but that was definitely one of those things where I was like, dang, I really wanted to see that come back and be redone in modern times. But the noir costume for Claire, definitely one of my favorites. And then the OG2 costume with her and the denim flames, also one of my favorite costumes. Like she's got two of my favorites genuinely in the whole franchise. Like, once again, obviously we're going favorite costumes in general, but those are definitely two of my favorites. And I will say, Claire's original costume from Resident Evil 2 is also one of my favorites. Like, that is probably my favorite look for Claire. Although I do like the Code Veronica look, it's really the same thing. It's just a darker, a darker vest and pants instead of being a brighter vest and shorts. But I do like the aesthetic of it, even though, they've changed it ever since, I think it was Dark Side Chronicles is when they like officially changed it, because, and I mentioned this before, I always thought she was wearing like a onesie, because admittedly she had on basically like, the vibrancy of the PlayStation 1, everything just looked pink, but it's supposed to be red. But it's like, yeah, I can understand them changing it. She had on a red vest and red pants, like red short shorts, and then like the black t-shirt and black Spanx underneath, which I thought looked kind of cool. Like, if you did that modern times, once again, I've seen the mods, and once again, this is something that I've always talked about when it came to the remakes that I really hate, and I'll talk about this again. I'll explain it further, and I've already done it in some random episode before. I'll explain it further because we are going to do our, the greatest disappointments in the franchise, because of course we have to do that. If we're celebrating the franchise, we do the highs and we do the lows, so that'll probably be the next episode. But the original costumes not being the actual original costumes was a huge problem. I was like, you already took her jacket, her vest away and gave us a jacket. I hated that, by the way. I don't hate the costume entirely, but I'm definitely not a fan of them giving her a jacket in the RE2 remake. And that's mostly a story thing, because in Revelations 2, that's like the first time she really had like just a red jacket. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense to give her a jacket. Like, as an adult, you keep her color scheme, you just give her the red jacket instead of, like she's an adult, she's in business attire, so to speak. You just give her a genuine red leather jacket instead of the red vest. It made perfect sense. And then when the remake came out, I was like, why would you do that? Like, the whole point of the jacket was like, it was kind of a part of her progression of growing into being an adult. It's like, how do I keep my style, but not walk around in like a effing biker vest, a biker vest with an angel and bombshells on the back? You just get a cool leather jacket. And so instead, they just gave her the leather jacket. And I'm like, this isn't nearly as cool as a vest. I gotta be honest. And they didn't even put the details. Like, honestly, it was super rude that they didn't put the details in. We'll talk once again. We'll talk about this more in disappointments, but costumes I do enjoy. Her original OG costume, I wish I could enjoy what they consider to be the original costume in the remake, but once again, it's not even her original costume because it doesn't have the black t-shirt or the black pants. So I was like, it's not really up there for me. But OG Claire costume, absolutely love it. I do enjoy her Code Veronica costume, but it really is just like, I would say her 2 costume is the best one that she's had. For me personally, I think that's the best one. Although I did see her Code Veronica costume in the Mercenaries 3D is really well done because it's a more vibrant red. Because in the game, I always thought in Code Veronica, I was like, it's more of a burgundy. It's like really dark. And then when they put her back in like the Mercenaries mode for 3DS, I felt like her costume was a lot brighter. It looked like as bright as the red from the original 2, but she still had the jeans on. And I was like, it looks super cool when it's a brighter version of the Code Veronica costume. So, you know, it kind of depends on the style or like however they decide to do it. But I always go with the original. Like when she was in Code Veronica, it was a darker costume. At least through most of the game. I mean, it was a fairly dark game, but I always saw it as like her costume got a little bit darker. That was like the big, you know, differentiator was like she had a darker vest. It was more burgundy than it was, you know, bright red. So that's how I always saw it. So for me, OG Claire is my favorite Claire costume. And then, like I said, the unlockable costume that she gets, the denim with the flames, absolutely amazing. The noir costume is super cool. Of course, you have to shout out the Elsa Walker costume. That was like one of the coolest reveals ever, where it was like, holy crap, that, you know, like I love that they did that. I don't really wear that costume too often, but like that holds a special place in my heart because I'm like, that is a nerdy thing to do. And that, you know, if only the RE3 remake had that sort of love where it was the most random things where it's like, we're even gonna reference like 0.5s and stuff like that. So I love the Elsa Walker costume. That's one of the best things in the world. But I like those. For Leon, honestly, there's not much. Like Leon has like, you know, like I said, the pinstripe suit, his original 4 costume, I really enjoy. That's one of my favorites. And that's honestly about it. Like I like his casual outfit in the remake, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. I think it looks nice. The villain costume looks really crazy, but I wear it every once in a while, especially if you put some of the accessories on it. You put like that crazy mask with the teeth on it, it kind of works. And you do like the eye patch and stuff. Like you put some accessories on that, it can kind of work with sort of the villain, the weird motif that he has going with like the feathers down the side. Good for pictures though, I will say that, because it's a very unique costume. So it's definitely interesting, but I wouldn't say it's really one of my favorites. The hero costume, definitely not one of my favorites. Like every once in a while, I probably use that more in VR than I do in the actual game, because you can, when you change costumes, they actually still change like the forearms. And it's like, okay, if I don't have to look at the whole costume, I'm good. Like I can look at the arms and be like, oh, it's, you know, slightly different hands and stuff, but I really don't want to see like that full costume. I don't think that's a good one. But the casual one, it's cool, not one of my favorites. But going from Leon, you know, poster boy and all that good stuff, I'm gonna go back to the original starting man of Resident Evil, and that's of course Chris Redfield. My favorite Chris Redfield costume is his Code Veronica costume. I think it goes extremely underappreciated, but that is my #1 costume. I wish we could see that a whole lot more. I think it's very simple. Like in the game, it basically looks all black, but he does have some green in there. He's just, you know, once again, that game is really dark. Like I thought he was wearing all black for like the whole time. I was like, he's dressed just like Wesker. He has green. There's a little bit of green in there, but I love that costume. That's my favorite costume. It's like the tactical vest. He's got a little bit of green. It's very simple, but I love that costume. My second favorite would probably be his original costume or RE5, because of course that's kind of how that became like his standard outfit after a while, once 5 came out. But I do like it. I like his RE5 costume, but it might be like #3 for me. I definitely enjoy his original costume. And once again, this is another one of those things where there's a huge discrepancy between PlayStation 1 and then GameCube remake. There's a huge difference because once again, the colors and everything was muted to be a bit more realistic. I like his original costume because it was very vibrant. That was just one of the things with the OG games, is that their costumes were very colorful. So if you look at like the old art where he has like that bright green on, that's what I really like. I don't know if I wouldn't really say that I like the remake version of it because the colors are more muted, but the original like bright green color, definitely love that one. I always loved that one. Same for Barry, where I was like, when the colors were more vibrant, I liked the costumes more. I think Jill is the one character that really escapes that because her costume was already two-tone. So with it being like, all right, well, you have a darker navy blue and a lighter, I guess it would be a little less than sky blue at this point, but like the original, I would say was more sky blue. It was like very vibrant, but we can still say sky blue and navy blue, or like close to navy blue. I think she's the only character that really escaped it, even in the remake where it's like, okay, you still have one bright color and one darker color. Everyone else, it was like, well, we're gonna bring that down just a little bit. But for her, she kind of escapes it because she already had the two tones. So I think they basically left her outfit alone. But I don't know. I love that OG Chris costume. Of course, Jill's original costume, one of my favorites, just in general. Like I'm debating if I'm gonna pay for this effing figure that just recently released. Look up Rotator Toys. I think they call it Valentina because it's unlicensed, so they can't call it Jill Valentine. But I don't know. Like it looks a little too green because it's it's kind of going with that style from just once again the game being dark. So it was kind of going with that where it's not, the costume isn't exactly blue, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to hop on my Resident Evil Facebook group and see if anybody bought it, because I'm like, I don't know if I want to get it if it's gonna really come out green. I'm not dying any like 1/6 scale clothing. Like that's not gonna happen. But I really want this figure because it's actually OG Jill. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But classic Jill costume, definitely one of my favorites. Like I said, OG Chris, that's one of my favorites as well. His Co Veronica costume is my favorite Chris costume, and I like his RE5 costume a lot. Like the more that I see it, the more that I do really appreciate that costume, because in RE6, it's obviously similar to that, but it's like, no, the RE5 costume where it was just like the ridiculously tight shirt, like honestly, it was just a muscle man shirt. It was like, yeah, the design of that is actually pretty sick. I really appreciate that. So I definitely like that. Sheva has some cool costumes. Something, no joke, I didn't figure this out until like a year or two ago. Sheva's like costume where she's in the suit is Hunnigan's costume from RE4. I didn't know that forever until I randomly watched a video where, they were just going through and doing like, hey, here are my favorite costumes from RE5. And it was just like, holy crap. Like I literally I was finally looking at the effing costume. I was like, how did I not see this for 2 decades? Like Sheva's alternate costume is just Hunnigan's suit from RE4. Never realized that a day in my life until I watched that video. And I was like, holy crap. It's super obvious. Sheva's suit costume is just Hunnigan's outfit. Crazy. So I never realized that, but that's definitely a cool costume of hers. Of course, back in the day, her being in like the African suit and stuff was like, that's kind of hot. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But I don't think I ever really used it. I don't remember I only played through 5 twice. Like admittedly, 5 is not up there high on my list. I don't even know what alternate costumes I ever used for that game. I'm sure I had some, but like I was not going through all the costumes on that, so I couldn't really give you much of a thing outside of, I've seen it a million times. I watch 100 million Resident Evil videos, so I've seen all the costumes. But aside from that, it's like, okay, they got crazy, Mad Max Chris. Like none of the costumes in 5 really did much for me outside of, like I said, Sheva's like Hunnigan outfit basically, and then the like African garb outfit, just because admittedly, she looks super hot in that. So it was like, that does stick out. It does stick out a little bit. But for Chris, he had the crazy Mad Max costume. That wasn't much for me. I was kind of surprised that they didn't do an original RE5 costume where he just had like his regular vest on. It's kind of weird that they didn't do that now that I think about it, but he had his alternate costumes and nothing special as far as I'm concerned when it comes to RE5. However, RE6, Samurai Chris, pretty sweet. That wasn't bad at all. Technically they count as costumes as well. I kind of skipped over this because I wanted to save it as far as RE2. I skipped over like the PS1 costumes, obviously some of my favorites. But RE6 had it for everybody. And I've always been annoyed. I was like, every single Resident Evil game should have this. Like, I don't know why they didn't. I was putting in work because that was during like the early RE net days where it was like, hey, you play this and get the points. Like you had to unlock those costumes online. And those were effing amazing. I also don't know if I think they don't have those. I think that was something I remember hearing was like, it's not a part of the game. So I don't know if those costumes, if you buy them now, I don't know if those costumes are in there. But I was a huge fan of that, of course. Like obviously for all the OG characters, it was their original costumes in, PS1 blocky form. And then for the newer characters, it was just their standard costume in blocky form. But still, best costumes in the game, period. And that was one of the most, excuse me. As much as we crap on RE6, no one ever talks about the fact that they've had like 24 effing costumes in that game, and you couldn't use a single one in the main campaign. Everything was for mercenaries only, which makes absolutely no sense. Like I mentioned this in another video where it was like with Code Veronica, they have an unlockable mode where once you beat that game, the extra, we'll just call it the battle mode. That battle mode will let you choose third person or first person. And I always thought it's super weird. They put that in a battle mode. So it's clearly in the game, but you can't do that in the main campaign. Like, of course things would be wonky, but it's like, just let it be wonky. Like just do first person. So always one of the weirdest things that no one ever, like that's something we should really be trashing RE6 for. Like I know there's a million other things to talk about, But Resident Evil in general is about unlockables. Like, that's one of the big things. That's one of my favorite things about the franchise is like, I love the game. I love what's happening. What am I gonna get? What am I gonna unlock in this game? And the costumes is a part of it. Obviously, weapons. We're gonna do a favorite unlockables in general, so that's gonna be an episode that's coming up. Also, I talked about unlockables that I want in RE4, or sorry, in RE9, so definitely check that out too. But costumes is definitely where it's at, unless it's the remake of 3, in which case it's trash. Actually, Code Veronica also has like nothing when it comes to alternate costumes. All they have is that battle mode, unless there's something else that I've never known for Code Veronica, but they don't really have much there either. But RE6 definitely deserves to be trashed on because they had a million costumes in that game. And it was like, yeah, these are great, right? Well, you can only use them in Mercenaries. It's like, I understand if the cutscenes are pre-rendered and they don't show up, like, hey, that's totally fine. But to do that for so many costumes, you even have costumes that you have to go to ReNet and you're doing extra missions and all this crap to unlock. And then it's just like, yeah, you just can't. You just can't use them. Like, you want these PS1 version characters? Nah, we're not gonna do that for you. We'll put them in the game, but we're not gonna do that. Samurai Chris, I know that would be cool to have in the whole campaign. I know we got like 28 hours worth of content in this game, but no alternate costumes, please. We don't want that. We'll make them just for Mercenaries mode, but we will not let you use them in any other mode. Utterly ridiculous. So I have no idea why they did that for RE6 or who forgot to just flip the button so the effing costumes could be in everything. But that was definitely something that bugged me because I was like, they have some amazing costumes aside from the PS1 costumes, which are definitely, I would say, like the best ones. But aside from that, they still have some great costumes. Like, I like some of the stuff that they have in there. Even some of the regular outfits. I think Sherry's like outfit with the jacket is actually like her best look in that game. That's definitely, I don't know if I should say that's one of my favorites like in the franchise, but when I think of Sherry, that's what I think of, especially for RE6. I don't think of her like after they get to China and they're in like the button ups and stuff. No, I think of her like in the actual jacket outfit from the beginning of the game. That's my favorite costume for her. For Jake, I guess it would be him just in like the regular t-shirt. That's how I see him most often. And he just had a regular jacket on. So like, he never really stood out that much anyway. But for Sherry, I was like, the jacket is where it's at. But as far as like actual favorites, the PS1 blocky costumes are 100% where it's at when it comes to those characters and just RE6 in general. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know why that's not in every remake as well. Like I said, that should be. They did it in 2. Obviously, they didn't do anything for 3. I don't even like the alternate costumes in 3 because neither of them are the original costumes. And I hate that so much. Like, it really does bug me. Like, the OG 3 costume isn't nearly as bad because it was like, they made it the squirt. I still don't understand why they had to change the design to actually make it look that way. I was like, why not just make it where she just has shorts underneath and just keep it the original looking skirt? So that's still a little weird that they changed the front design of it because I was like, why not just make it, it's a fake video game. Like, even if it was slightly unrealistic, just make it like I always thought she was kind of like, in the original, it does kind of look like a leather skirt. I'd probably have to look at it again. Not a leather skirt, but it's definitely more form-fitting. Like, everyone talks about, like, realistically, it's an insane costume for her to really have. But even changing it to like a skirt, it was like, well, you don't really have to do that to make it like the real world version. Just put fake shorts underneath and then just make it, the original thing. Because once again, you look at mods and it's like, well, there you go right there. Like, it can look a little weird, but that's fine. It's an alternate costume. And then the remake of 1, it's not even her original costume. Like, the shoulder, just look at the shoulder pads. They're literally not the same shoulder pads. They put like designs in them. And I'm like, don't do that. Just leave it how it was and just make it better. Like, that's all you had to do, which is why I don't really like it. Because I'm like, it's not really her original costume. And being a giant nerd that I am doing all these videos, that matters to me. If I care about the Elsa Walker costume, I'm gonna care that you changed the shoulder pads on Jill's original like RE1 costume. Like, it's crazy that they did that. And also only put 2 costumes in the game. Absolutely ridiculous. But I think that covers just about everything when it comes to favorite costumes for me personally. Although I will say Wesker and RE4, both Wesker costumes from RE4 are great. I do like his remake more. I like the vest with like the rolled up sleeves and stuff. I think that looks cooler than his original suit. Like, I think he looks cool. I always thought he looked great back then, but now that they've done the remake version, I was like, I like this a little better. I like the like tiny hint of blue. I was like, you know what? That actually works for him. Because I always kind of forget that blue is one of his colors too. There are, there's more than just Jill and Leon that have blue. Wesker has that tiny hint as well. Like, even in the original, I think his costume is akin to Chris's costume from Code Veronica, whereas like in a dark setting, it all looks black, but then you actually see the art for it. It's like, oh, he's got like a little bit, like there's a little bit of blue for Wesker. So I like that. I thought that was super cool, unless I'm mistaken as well as far as like his original costume. But I feel like maybe I'm Mandelaing myself because of the new costume. But I like the suit. I like the vest with a little bit of blue and like the shirt underneath. I think that looks way cooler than his original costume from 4, which was already cool. It was definitely cool back in the day, but I'm like, it's been one-upped. It's been one-upped, but that was definitely a cool one. I'm not crazy about his RE5 costume. Like, it's all right. Like, I understand it's supposed to be like the coolest. Like, he's definitely cool, and he's doing the Matrix and all that jazz. But I'm like, like it's cool. He's got like the crazy fiber weaving on his outfit and stuff. It's nice, but I'm like, it doesn't do like the most for me in the world. But I do like his RE4 remake costume. I like his RE4 original, but the remake one definitely hits like favorite status. And also, his Code Veronica costume is straight up black, because it's literally just, honestly, it's kind of the same thing as the RE4 shirt. It's just not, he doesn't have a vest on. It's not as special. It's more like a military style outfit where he has the black pants and just a black button up shirt. And I believe he also has his sleeves rolled up in that one. Maybe that's why they changed it for 4. Oh, you know what? Maybe they changed it for 4 because they are doing Code Veronica next, and so they're keeping in line with him having the rolled up sleeves, and then they're gonna switch it to the full jacket by 5. Obviously, that's just me throwing stuff out, but I'm like, I didn't really think of that too much. Like, why randomly roll up the sleeves? But he does keep that same look in Code Veronica. It's just a different shirt, and obviously different pants. So we'll see about that. But I like that costume too. I'm a sucker for just a jet black costume, and he looked really cool in that. That's when he first busted out the superpowers, so he was doing all sorts of wild stuff in that game. So I was like, okay, like Wesker looks pretty cool here. I think he also had basically like combat gloves on in that one too, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had like the gloves on. So he was definitely in like some ass whooping mode. So I always kind of like that costume. Like I said, just jet black, and then him running around with the glasses, and just, he kicked the crap out of Claire. I think of that every once in a while. I randomly think of Code Veronica, and I'm like, he kicked her so hard. He kicked her so hard. Also underrated. No one ever, people don't talk about Code Veronica enough. He was mean. He was very mean. He kicked her, and he put his foot right on her chest, was like, I'm gonna need you to do what I tell you to do. He was very mean in that game, but I really appreciated that back in the day. I was like, this is crazy. Like, he is, Wesker popping up with powers like that, just nuts. He was nuts in that game. But I think that covers the gambit for me personally. Favorite costumes. Random shout out to like the crazy costume for Moira in Revelations 2, like they did like the sexy ninja costume. I like the top part. I'm like, it doesn't have to be sexy. I actually like the costume because I love ninjas and samurai and all that stuff. But I'm like, I don't hate it, but I'm like, it didn't have to be sexy. It could have actually just been super cool. I would have appreciated that more. Personally speaking, I think I would have appreciated that more. RE0 with the infinite amount of costumes, them doing the contest, amazing. Like I can't imagine what it's like being the people that won that contest for RE0, where it's like, hey, my shirt was designed, and like my shirt design was put into Resident Evil 0, even though people trash the game all the time. Your shirt is still in there, and they got a million of them, especially if you got the collection. Crazy. So I do love those costumes. I definitely wear the Jill Sandwich shirt all the time. There's a couple of them that have like zombies on. I can't remember them exactly off the top of my head because they put quite a few in there. But I use the Jill Sandwich shirt. I use the something with the zombies. I think there's one with a green herb on it. I use a couple of those like submission shirts for sure, because I actually think those are really good costumes. I love the fact that they put the the crazy RPD basketball costume for Rebecca. That's just a funny one to have in there, so that's interesting. I like Billy's suit in the original, or just in general. Billy's suit is pretty cool. Rebecca's like, I guess it's supposed to be sexy. I don't know what they call, I don't remember what it's called. I guess it's supposed to be like the sexy costume. I always thought it was interesting, having like the forearm like sleeves and stuff. It's not like really my favorite, but they also didn't put Jack in like the original game. So you kind of have to play the collection version to get like a decent amount of costumes, and they still kind of shafted Billy. I was like, okay, he gets some references, like cool. Like he gets like, God, what's the dude, the commando dude? From Marvel vs. I can't even remember it. Captain Commando, like that's cool. He gets like some other video game reference costumes, but they don't look that great. So it's like, I'm gonna put him in a suit or his regular costume, and that's really it. And that kind of sucks. So I wish he got more, especially in the collection. Like Rebecca has like 20 effing costumes, and they're like, we'll throw you a couple Capcom references, and they just look okay. They honestly, they might as well have just thrown him like a Ryu costume or something. Like just throw something crazy on him, and they're like, Captain Commando, but not like the full costume, just like kind of a reference to it, and that's it. And I'm like, he got shafted. Like they knew they weren't bringing him back. They were like, just like we ain't doing this. So that's unfortunate for Billy. But I do like his suit, and I also like his regular costume. I do like Rebecca's costume as well. I will say her OG Resident Evil 0 costume, where her costume was basically, you know, Jill's outfit. I do like that. That's actually one of my favorites, where it's just like Jill's costume but white and green. I think it looks amazing because she even had the beret as well back then. And I was like, that's actually a really great costume. So once again, one of the prototypes is actually one of my favorites. I kind of wish we had that more. But that's kind of a, you know, you can play it in Resident Evil 0 because I do believe that's in the collection if I'm not mistaken. And if not, then, you know, the collection's on PC. I guarantee you it's modded in there. But that is one of my favorites. Like, I wish that wasn't a prototype. I was like, you know, I'm a sucker for the beret. I like the outfit. It really was just Jill's costume, like very slightly altered. And of course the colors, excuse me, but definitely love that prototype Rebecca costume because it actually was really cool. It's definitely, that is actually one of my favorites now that I think about it. But that, I think, officially covers the game because I definitely forgot 0. You know, surprise, surprise, I left 0 out. But that pretty much covers everything. I'm excited to see what we're gonna get for RE9, if there are any other costumes that they haven't shown us. I think that was something that kind of happened in RE2, where it was like, hey, here are like obviously the deluxe costumes, but we didn't see the unlockable costumes. Same thing happened with RE4, where it was like, we could probably guess at that point, like, hey, they're probably gonna put the suit back in, they're probably gonna do, you know, the Remake 2 costume and stuff, but we didn't technically know everything that was gonna be there. It did end up being like really just the alternate costumes, and everything else was just what was already in the game. So we'll see what happens with 9. I do like what I'm seeing so far, at least, you know, for Grace. Love the Lady D costume. I thought that was pretty cool. For Leon, honestly, the suit sticks out the most, and that's only because it's clearly from one of the CG movies. That's why I like that suit the most, because I was like, that's pretty sick that they reference like the CG movies. So that's why I like that the most so far. It's just the fact that it's a reference to something else. But other than that, I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. I like his regular costume, honestly. Once again, watched like the last video. The jacket's probably like my number 2 costume for Leon. Like it already, and I've barely even seen that in costume. It's already kind of hitting number 2 for me. I'm like, that outfit looks pretty sick. You know, I know everybody's just losing their mind when he takes that jacket off. Like the shirt's a little too tight, but nobody seems to have a problem right now. But the dude looks pretty cool. Like honestly, it's up there. It's like the number 2 costume. We'll see as I play the game if it beats out OG RE4, because that's his number 1 for me so far. But we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, we'd love to know your favorite costumes throughout all of Resident Evil, because there are a million different costumes to pick from for a million different characters. So I would love to know your favorite costumes throughout the last 30 years of this franchise. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.